Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS preview for the 2021 Charles Schwab Challenge. Now, before I actually get into the video, I want to remind you guys there are timestamps in the description below. Those timestamps can also be found on YouTube's progress bar. All you have to do is hover over the progress bar and you will find timestamps that way. But a brief summary of what I'll cover. I always like to start with tournament fact sheets. It's a very good way to figure out how the course is going to be playing, what type of turf grass there is, and other course statistics. So we'll start there. And then we go into weather. Now, it's a Monday night. Weather changes, obviously, throughout the week. I always highly encourage you guys to look Wednesday, but I'm just going to give you kind of a brief idea of what to expect come Thursday and Friday, because those are the 2 days that really matter before making the cut for these PGA Tour players. And maybe one stack, one wave over the other matters, or, the weather might affect one more than the other, and obviously you want to target the other wave. And from there, we'll get basically right into all the spreadsheets I cover. We'll look at target results and past cut information, past winners, that kind of stuff, and get right into the bucket system. And for those of you that don't know what the bucket system is, I analyze the top 10 every single tournament, every single week, going back to 2013 of that tournament. And I try to figure out what does that top 10 make up mostly of. I look at recent form. Are golfers with good recent form coming in this targets that we should be looking for? Or should we be targeting kind of poorer recent form? Same thing applies for course history, last year's results, last week results, and obviously I look at salaries and strokes gain stats. I just do it all within the bucket format because there is no way to create an optimal lineup unless you're looking at everything as a whole picture. There's no sense in saying find ball strikers, find good off the tee, because that's not how optimal lineups are created. Optimal lineups have a bunch of different varying degrees, and that is what my intention is trying to figure out what that optimal lineup is through the buckets. It's all about finding the sweet spot. So let's go ahead and get into this video. Again, we're going to start right at the tournament fact sheets. You can see I have Charles Schwab Challenge up. It's at the Colonial Country Club, which is, I think this is 75th year anniversary. So this golf course has been used for 75 years on the PGA Tour, which is crazy. I think the only golf course that's older than this or that's been used more than this is the Augusta National, where the Masters are played. But yeah, it's a staple. It's a stalwart, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of course history that you can look at, but I only go back to 2013 when I look at course history. I'm at the point now where I'm actually thinking about moving up that course history. So I don't want to go all the way back to 2013. I want to keep a nice fresh amount of years, because going back that far, you might get some of the older golfers with good course history, and that probably won't matter, anymore going forward, because obviously their skill probably isn't as good as it once was. But I don't know, I'm still toying with it. I think 2013 is a really good year to kind of anchor any statistics around, because that is the beginning of how the PGA Tour schedules its tournaments now. So anyways, that's where my course history goes back to, but you could go further back because obviously this golf course has been played for 75 years. It's a par 70, 7,200 yards. That's pretty standard for a par 70. I don't think that's long by any means, and obviously it's not short. Average green size, 5,000 square feet. That's a little small on the average scale, but that's fine. It's not super small, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't care really about the other statistics that you see right here. I have in the past talked about the number of holes that water is in play, just because I think it's a good thing to tell you guys if you have the access to find golfers who can avoid penalties, or find those that do find penalties quite often and fade those guys, or play the ones that do avoid those penalties. But I don't have those stats for you, so it's kind of pointless for me to talk about it. If I had it, I would look kind of at that stuff. It wouldn't be my end all be all, but it's definitely something I would consider. The big thing I like to take away is what type of turf grass do the greens use? And here it's bent grass. We have Bermuda everywhere else. So if you are looking for approach and around the green, look at Bermuda stats. If you're looking at putting stats, it's obviously bent grass. For me, I guess I just thought of this right now. I'm only looking at bent grass throughout this video, but in retrospect, I should have grabbed Bermuda results also, because I really only look at average finishing position for any grass stat, and then also the frequency that these golfers finish inside the top 10 for that type of grass stat. I do believe around the green, especially with Bermuda, matters a lot. And in the rough as well, because you can get some crazy lies in Bermuda rough. And I do think this is full bloom Bermuda. So it's going to have all the characteristics that you would have. So if you guys at home have those statistics, definitely use them. I always like to make the comment that half of the shots that golfers hit are on the green. Therefore, if there is a grass stat that you should be paying attention more so than another, it's the one on the green. Everyone knows that. That's also your scoring club, but even around the green, those are your scoring clubs as well. So yeah, that's how I would look at it. But for me, we're gonna just be looking at a bent grass. Actually, we won't be looking at it in this video. We'll look at it in the strategy video. But yeah, bent grass would be the type of turf grass I'd be looking at. We can see who the architect is, John Bredemus. I do not know, and Perry Maxwell. I do not know if there are other golf courses on tour that we play with those architects. So obviously we can't really filter out by these architects and see what their average finishing position are. The golfers that is in this field. And then we can find other additional notes. I rarely go over these, but sometimes it's helpful, especially if the course was damaged and had to be renovated somehow. But as you can see, there's nothing here for additional notes. So let's go ahead and move on to the weather. I do have Fort Worth up. You can see that here. It's the 10-day weather forecast. And we're going to be looking at Thursday and Friday. You can see I'm already looking at Friday, but Thursday, 88 degrees. The big thing to look for is wind. And it looks like Thursday, it's going to be blowing a little bit harder than it would be on Friday. We can see 10 to 20 miles an hour throughout the day, averaging around 14 miles an hour. And on Friday, it says 9 miles an hour for average wind, and it's 5 to 10. But there's also chance of rain. Now, I know most of you fair weather golfers hate rain and think that golfers play bad in rain, but rain is easy to play through. It's wind. Wind is the trickiest component of weather to battle through. That and cold. Cold and windy is absolutely the worst. But the rain isn't going to be terrible, especially with 82 degrees. Like it's going to feel good. I mean, us Minnesotans, we would know that feels good. I'm not saying the rest of you guys don't, but we're so used to cold weather. Rain during a hot day like that just seems like such a welcoming thing. Anyways, Thursday looks like, the wind is going to be the highest. I do believe 12 miles an hour is kind of my threshold when I think about, okay, is there a type of wind? Is there a day where that wind is over 12 miles an hour? If so, then I have to think about, what type of stack do I want to play? Usually, I shouldn't say usually. There's a slight advantage to PM AM waves just what's the word I'm looking for? Without any type of weather, anything, usually there's a better rhythm to PM AM waves than there is to AM PM waves. And most golfers on tour, at least those that have talked about it, would say they prefer a PM AM tee time as opposed to an AM PM. I think Webb Simpson just said it not too long ago. I don't remember if it was on the Subpar podcast, but a current PGA professional said that. And I've heard other ones. I just can't think of their names or where you can find it. But most of them do prefer PM AM. And it makes sense because when you tee off in the AM on Thursday, you have the whole afternoon to wait, and then you have the whole morning of the next day to wait. So you have a long time to wait. It's kind of hard to get back in a rhythm, especially if you've been playing well on Thursday. And I mean, if you were playing poorly on Thursday, though, you'd have enough time to practice, but then that also wears you out, tires you out a little bit. And yeah, to me, there's just a slight advantage to PM AM. But if there's more wind on a Thursday afternoon, I think it just evens out. And maybe there's a slight bump to the AM PM. So I've never really been one to, do a full stack of one wave over another. The greatest disparity I've ever done is 4 golfers from one stack. That's it. I don't go more than that, and if I do, it's by accident. So anyways, that's my whole thing with weather. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. I again encourage you guys all to check weather on Wednesday night just to see if you need to make any alterations to your lineups. I'm sure most of you guys have already had lineups built prior to that. That's why it's just an alteration. But if you haven't made your lineups, because I put in dummy lineups throughout the entire week, and then I create lineups Wednesday night. So I am checking weather and doing that kind of thing. If you don't have, the time to do that, then obviously build your lineups throughout the week and then just check. Maybe it's your high price guys that are in that PM AM stack. Maybe those guys you want to switch to the AM PM, golfers that are in the AM PM. But all up to you guys. Again, I encourage you Wednesday night to check it out again. With that being said, let's go ahead and really just jump into past results. This is the bucket system, but we'll go into past results. I actually forgot to mention I'm going to be covering a course breakdown in this preview video as well. I don't know why I forgot that, but that is what we do in previews now. Anyways, target score for the winner. I think it's important to establish what that target score is because you can determine, is this a birdie fest or is this a grinders golf course, basically. And what I mean by that are golfers who are better suited for making pars versus those that are better suited making birdies. And there is a difference. There are different types of profile golfers. I'm a golfer. Unfortunately, I can't make a lot of birdies myself, like streaks of birdies, but I sure as hell can save par easy for whatever reason. It's just that's my strong suit. So I think the biggest birdie streak I've ever had is 4 in a row. Never had anything more than 4 in a row. I've had buddies that have done 6 and 7 in a row before, and it's like, man, that's awesome. My game isn't that consistent to do something like that, but I really rarely ever shoot super high scores. It's just, if I do have a birdie putt, it just seems like I miss. If I have a long par putt, it seems like I make. And I do believe that's how a lot of these PGA Tour pros see themselves as well. You hear that on the broadcast. You also hear it in golf radio. That's why I talk about, is this a birdie fest? Is this a par fest? Or is it kind of a hybrid between the two? Which means everyone would be available then. But anyways, carrying on. Looking at the target score, obviously we see 15 under in 2020. Now, that was played in June. This tournament's usually played in May. So you could exclude it, but it's kind of right in that threshold of all these other scores. 2019 was 13 under, 2018 was 20 under, and that was the lowest this tournament's ever gone. 2017, 10, 2016, 17, 2015, 12, 2014 it was 9 under, that's the highest, and 2013 was 14. So we basically see an average finishing position between 12 under and 15 under. And I think that's probably what we're going to see this year as well. I don't know what the course is playing like. I haven't heard any type of news from anybody if it's had more rain, if it's soft conditions, anything like that. If you get the opportunity to listen to PGA Tour radio, listen to the Golf Channel, just see what they're saying about the golf course. I'm sure right now most people are talking about Phil Mickelson's win still, so it's hard to get that gauge of how this course is playing. But if it's playing soft, I think we're going to see lower scores. If it's playing firm, then I think we'll see higher scores. But with weather and stuff like that, it doesn't seem too terrible. Yeah, Saturday and Sunday seem pretty benign. 9 miles an hour wind and 11 on Sunday. It just seems like the score, is suited or not the score, but it seems like the tournament's going to be suited for low scores. So that's how I feel. If we look at the cut every single year, we can see last year was it was 2 under par, but minus that year, I don't know how many were under par. We have 2 over in 2019. We have 2 over in 2018, 4 over in 2017. 2017 was 10 under par. So that was, kind of goes hand in hand. It looks like Thursday, Friday might have been a little tough. 2016 was 1 over. 2015 was also 1 over. So was 2014, and then 2013 was 1 under. So I think 1 over, it looks like it's pretty much the average cut score. And I mean, I could see it around even and 1 over, or yeah, even to 1 over. Meaning, well, if scoring is optimal, if the conditions are optimal, then it would be 1 under. So anywhere between 1 under to 1 over. If you're playing statement games and you see where the cut is, play around with those numbers. If it says, cut will be -3, pick the under. If it says cut will be 4 or 3 over, pick the over. But yeah, that's how I would look at it. And when it comes to picking golfers, I think it's a mixed bag. Like, there's no one way or the other. Like, you could pick par, grinded out golfers, no problem. Those that have, a scoring average around 71 and don't fluctuate with their low rounds. So if their low round is only 67, that's your grinded out golfer. Yeah. Anyways, it's going to be open to anybody. That's all I'm trying to get at. Which means there really is an advantage to looking at something like this, but it's always good to go over. Let's go ahead and get into a course breakdown. I never read what I have for every hole. Sorry, I don't have graphics to show you. I know some sites out there do that. Some podcasts do that. But actually, I guess I've never seen a podcast do that. Anyways, you can read what I have on the screen. Go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to scroll down, go to holes 10 through 18, pause the video, which you want to, read whatever's on there if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. What I found out, this is kind of the summary here. There are 3 holes off the tee where draws matter, 3 holes were off the tee, or 2 holes were off the tee, fades matter. And then there are 3 each. Well, I'm sorry, 3 approach shots that require draws, 3 approach shots that require fades. I shouldn't say requires, I should say prefers, because I don't think there's actually a hole out here that requires a certain type of shot shape. Trees do line this golf course, and they're not too far off of the fairway. I don't want to say it reminds me of RBC Heritage, because obviously you have sandy areas underneath those trees, and it's much tighter there, but the trees here kind of remind me of those that you see at RBC Heritage. I believe we're probably going to see, full bloom, very lush trees. And on a lot of these holes, it will matter trying to hit it around those trees as opposed to going over. I don't think there are any real forced carries that require you to either hit at a certain distance to either get over those trees. But either way, I do have what I feel like is your preferred shot shape. It pretty much lends itself to any shot shape, really. It's not one over the other. Last week at the PGA Championship, I said it was more of a fade course, and I didn't say this in the review, but when I reviewed it, kind of doing this course breakdown, I'm like, man, I forgot to mention that. Looking at the top 10 for the PGA Championship, only 3 golfers hit draws. 2 golfers hit draws. 1 guy hit it both, and that was Phil. Phil shapes it all different directions, but everyone else had a fade. So it definitely worked out there. I never really go and tell you guys to choose golfers based off of their shot shape. I kind of leave it up to you guys, but this seems pretty open to whatever shot shape. I shouldn't say whatever shot shape. There are going to be holes where it's going to benefit fades, and there's going to be holes where it's going to benefit draws. For those holes where I say a draw is going to be a benefit, to hit a draw, those that actually hit, fade the golf ball and can't really hit draws that successful, as long as they aim for the middle of the green or they aim for the middle of the fairway or club down or whatever, they're going to be just fine. They might make it a little bit more difficult for themselves to hit shots closer to the hole or give themselves, good approach shots, but you can hit the shot, you can hit whatever shot shape you want at this course. It's just for those holes that kind of work against you, you just got to play them smart. So I put this up here because I think this allows for the best scoring opportunities. And when it's even like this, there really isn't a benefit to whatever shot shape it is. So another thing to go over that really didn't lead to any answers, but still, again, something I think is important to go over. So go ahead, load up with whatever golfers you want. Hopefully they play smart and don't try to access holes they can get to, because they don't have the preferred shot shape. But that is the course breakdown that I have. Par 70, 7,200 yards. We already went through that during the tournament fact sheets. So we shall see how the golfers get on this week. So let's go ahead and dive right into the bucket system. Again, if you haven't been here with me before, the bucket system is my analysis of the top 10, top 5, really. You can see I have top 5 numbers here, top 20. I also have cut-made frequencies. And it's just my way to show you guys what type of performances out of golfers that you want at this course. So, for instance, let's go ahead and just look at the last year buckets. So I'm going to clear this all out and put in last year. Your number one bucket are golfers who did not play the year before. I have 30 instances from 2013 to this day, or actually really last year buckets go back to 2014 because 2013 again is my cutoff. There's no tournament I do before 2013, so therefore we can have, last year stats. So it's whatever their performance was the year before, and obviously I add all of those numbers in here. And if you want a kind of a behind the scenes thing, these are all my buckets that I do all of the hard work. So your last 5 counts, your last 10 counts, that kind of stuff. But I put it in a little easier way to look in the summary. So again, your number one bucket for golfers who finish inside the top 10 are golfers who did not play the year before. Not only do we have 30 instances, but every single year we've seen at least 2 golfers inside the top 10 who had not played the year before. So I guess I can show you guys that pretty easy. If we go to 2020 and just look at this column here, obviously you're comparing that column and this column, or not that column, I'm sorry. This column and this column. Look at all the golfers inside the top 10. How many of them did not play the year before? So that's what this last year bucket is right here. And you can even see some of them didn't even have course history, which we will obviously get to. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So there are a ton of instances where did not plays finished inside the top 10 for this tournament. Did not plays from the year before, that is. So you can see 30 instances, a minimum of 2. That means at least, every single year there's been 2. We've only in a maximum of 7. Now, one huge thing to look at is this number here, the average per year. And again, this is adding every single golfer who's had a did not play, attached to their last year's score in every single field dating back to 2013. On average, we see 55. Now, here's the big thing. If the number here for this year, this is the count for this year, if that's smaller than that number, obviously we can kind of dial back our expectations for this bucket. And you can see, obviously, for this bucket, we only have 33 golfers who did not play this tournament the year before. And again, I can go ahead and prove that to you guys. I don't do this enough, and I should. I'm a visual person. I want proof. I want to see how many golfers actually did not play the year before, just to make sure whoever's talking about it, isn't screwing with me. But you can see, Will Zalatoris, obviously a golfer who has not, I shouldn't say obviously, if you didn't know this. I mean, he just came on the scene not too long ago, but Will Zalatoris did not play here last year. And you can see some of these golfers here. A lot of them are in the 6K range. Only 10 of them are not. But though that would be your group of golfers who did not finish inside the top, or I'm sorry, who had a did not play attached to their last year's score. So with that being said, when we look at this bucket, it seems like it's a very volume driven bucket. So 55 golfers in it, only 33 this year. But success rate isn't terrible, 7.75% for a very large bucket like this. It's not the greatest success rate, but it's not terrible. And again, that success rate is the frequency of golfers in this bucket finishing inside the top 10. So there's that. What I try to do is find a small bucket, average per year, with a number very similar and a high success rate. So as we look, actually the buckets 2, 4, and 5 are very similar to each other. They're very close to the average per year. The success rate is over 10%. I like seeing success rates over 10%. And you might be thinking, why are these numbers so high? Well, it's because of the count. You know, how often have we seen golfers out of those buckets inside the top 10? Now, I've mentioned, success rate, or not success rate. Should I rank this by success rate or should I rank this by frequency? And I did success rate for one tournament and it just didn't make sense. Because although this is a bucket right here that has a high number of golfers in it, it ends up being the 5th ranked bucket. And it's very hard for me to be okay with seeing inside the top 10, like 7, last year bucket 5s. It didn't make sense to me. It's like it shouldn't look that way. And I mean, if we did see 5 or 7, last year bucket 1s or whatever, if we saw 7 of these of golfers in this bucket, if we had 70 golfers in that bucket, that means a 10% success rate. That doesn't look good, but it's still 7 golfers inside the top 10. So you do want to target those golfers. Therefore, I think no matter what, I'm always going to go up by the actual count. So anyways, here we are in the last year buckets. That was a very long-winded, and we've been talking about these buckets. Last year 2 through 5, or 2, 4, and 5, that's your golfers who finished. So as it reads, the range that you see here, last year bucket 2 golfers, this bucket here, are golfers who finished top 20 the year before. We can see there are 19 golfers in the field this year. We see on average 19, 12.23% success rate. We're projecting we're going to see 2 golfers inside the top 10. And last week at the PGA Championship, every single bucket, so if I go ahead and select all, and every projection for all the buckets you see hit. But there's a caveat to that. There were 16 guys inside the top 10. It's hard not to hit, so it wasn't as impressive, but I do want to share that all these projections hit. Now, it's up to you guys. Do you think, some of these golfers, and it depends, what type of golfers are in these buckets. Now, I just showed you, if we go ahead and again only look at golfers who had a last year or did not play for last year's score, Will Zalatoris is a pretty quality golfer. Now, do you think he's going to finish inside the top 10? He very well could. Again, this was a volume-driven bucket. Doesn't mean quality is going to finish inside the top 10. But if you wanted to make that argument, obviously Will Zalatoris is your guy. Or Cameron Tringale, or anybody else that you see on the list right here. It's all entirely up to you. Now, I see Zalatoris. Snedeker, I think, is a decent play. Westwood's a decent play. And Tringale, from there down, it's kind of a, we're getting into our high-risk plays. And I'm not saying these guys aren't really high-risk either. I think Westwood and Zalatoris, to me, are the only safe plays. I have no issue going back to Tringale. He obviously had a very bad finish in the PGA Championship, but it was because of 4 holes, basically. Brandt Snedeker, I'm not a huge fan of Brandt, but I wouldn't really so much say he's a super risky play, but in the past, for me, he's been risky. You can see he actually has really good recent form. Anyways, that's how I look at this. Obviously, do with it as you will. But I think we can move on. I just want to give you the heads up, when you're doing this analysis yourself, for me, I'm grabbing 2 guys who top 20. I might grab one guy who finished somewhere between 20 to 40. I might grab one guy that finished 40 to 60. Probably not, but I might. It all depends on what type of golfer is there, but this is kind of your safeguard. Don't play more than what you see on the screen from those buckets. One of the highest projections that we have, golfers who missed the cut from last year. It's a 9.94% success rate. 40 golfers in the field this week. On average, we usually see 24. So we're seeing a little higher number. That's why the projection's a little bit higher. But here's what I've been thinking about doing with these projections. I was trying to describe this last week at the PGA Championship, but for me, I think what I'm going to do is -1 from whatever the number is in this column, and then -1 whatever the number is in this column, and then add whatever's left over from here to that number. So just for this example that I'm going to highlight right here, so I'm going to -1 into the minimum, that equals 0. I'll -1 in the projection, that equals 1.32. Then I'll add that 0 to 1.32. It obviously stays at 1.32. So 1 will be locked in for me. I will always have one golfer in this range. I think that's the smartest way to do it. Now, if you're wondering what that would do to this, we -1 here, that equals 1. -1 here, that equals 1. Obviously, that flips to 2. So now we have, we're going to select 2 golfers from this. It all really depends on what these numbers are, the projections to go along with the minimums, but obviously you can see the minimum is pretty high for last year 2s and last year 1s. So I'm going to have a good mix of that. Stay around or stay tuned to the strategy video, or I shouldn't say stay tuned, but jump on in during the strategy video and you will see, the golfers that I'll basically be going around. So last year bucket isn't really the bucket that I typically start with. I usually start with the salary bucket because that is the first thing that we actually look at whenever we're looking at building lineups. So let's go ahead and we start at the last year bucket, but we're gonna restart and go here. Obviously the last year bucket was already done, so I'm not gonna go over it again. But either way, salary bucket. Your number 1 bucket, the 7K range. Every year we've seen at least 3 inside the top 10. Last year, we also saw that. Or not last year, I'm sorry. Last week of the PGA Championship, 3 was the number. And we saw, I think, 4 golfers inside. And I can't remember off the top of my head. It was either 3 or 4. I'm pretty sure it was 4. But let's double check. So I go to 2021. Take a look here at the top 10. Again, there were 16 golfers that were in the top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there were 4. If we look at our summary and we come down to salary and we look at our 7K, the minimum said 3. So obviously that hit. The projected amount was 3. But again, there were 16 golfers that were inside the top 10. So it's very difficult for it not to hit. We did see 2 inside the top 5 though. So that is a definite plus. 7K here, projected's 2. So, I mean, if I'm doing that -1 to each of them, that means we would see 4 or 3. We would be projecting 3, which now that I think about it, I'm going to have to rethink that. Let me know if you have a better idea of how to do this, because the reason that I've thought about doing it that way is, although this says 3, the optimal lineup sometimes does not include that. You need to have a safeguard. Now, I will say, because it says 3, we want to at least play 1 for sure, but I'm very cautious playing, locking in 2 or even 3 golfers from the 7K range. What would your ideal way be when selecting? Like, would you lock in any golfer in the 7K range? Obviously from seeing this, projected amount only 2.56. Success rate not that high, a little bit less in the field this year than we've seen in past years. I don't know. Maybe I look at the top 5 frequency. Maybe that's what I should go off of. And if there is a 1, maybe that's what I should. Oh, that's actually probably no. It's got to be the top 10. Very difficult getting all 6-year golfers inside the top 5, especially when there are only 5 places open. I shouldn't say most of the time, but some of the time. It will be interesting to see this. I'm just going to leave it as how I said it. Maybe I will say this. It can't exceed this number. So even if we minus this, add to this, it can exceed 2.56. So let's just say we're locking in 2. And should feel comfortable locking in 2. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Either way, let's move on. I don't mean to do a video of me just thinking about what to do. Anyways, 7K, your number 1 bucket, 14 instances inside the top 10. And really, I think it's just looking at 2019 and 2018. I don't know if 2017 has salaries. It does. Never mind. So it's 2017, 2018, and 2019. Those 3 years, actually, let's just take a look. Like I said, I like to confirm everything that I see or everything that I talk about. So we see 3 inside the top 10 in 2017, 2018. We see 4 in 2019. We see 3. So obviously we see at least 3 inside the top 10. Like I said, maximum was 4. We obviously see that here. So again, that was my proof of showing you guys, obviously, what you just saw. Wait, did we look at 2020? No, we didn't. Sorry, 2020. We saw 3 in 2020. Okay. Oh, we saw more than 2020. We saw 4. There we go. So yeah, no, 7K is your number 1. From there, number 2 is actually the 9K range, followed by the 10K range, and then the 8K range. And each one of those has at least 1 as your projected, and we've seen at least 1 every single year inside the top 10. So to me, this is wow, what am I trying to say? Your standard 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 lineup build, just based off of, I guess, the analysis that I'm showing you here. Although you could have 3 7Ks as well. But let's go ahead. Let's take a look at optimal lineups just to double check this. So in 2017, our optimal lineup, you can take a look. Everything that has this little black tick mark is a part of the optimal lineup. We had 9-7, 11-8, 7-5, 6-9, 7, 6-7. So we had 2 6Ks, 2 7Ks, an 11K, which obviously is 10K plus, and a 9K. So that was kind of an interesting build for your optimal lineup. And I typically go over a realistic optimal lineup to go with optimal lineup, but as long as it equals over 49,000, that's a realistic optimal lineup. And here's the reason why. I tried to explain this in the last video and I failed miserably. But here, this is what I want to show you. Because I just figured it out today, an easy way to actually go about it. And I think the only way I can do this is if I have my lineup construction page, which thankfully I've already loaded with Charles Schwab Challenge lineups. Or not lineups, but their salaries. If I were to take, I'm sorry, the font is small. I will zoom it. I'll zoom it right now. If I were to go over here and select 8,400 down, the 6 golfers down, paste them over here. What I should get, I have 1,100 left, meaning I used up 48,900 of my salary. So I have 1,100 left. My rule is 49,000. I want 49,000 or more. So anything underneath that, if we do anything underneath that, I gotta do the calculator. Hold on. I had this in my mind before actually bringing it up, but here's how it goes. So 8,400 is the absolute threshold of putting 6 golfers together next to each other to get to 49,000. Meaning you have to, 84 is the ultimate lowest anchor spot for your highest price guy. What this ends up doing is it eliminates so many different lineup combinations that you possibly can do. If we don't go over that, so basically, how it ends up working is you look at your field. There's 121 golfers in this field. And of those 121, only 19 golfers are above it when it comes to, or let's go 84 and above. So 20 golfers are 8,400 and above. If we were to start at 8,300, the total amount of permutations that you can build, first of all, we have 101 different combinations. So we have to create 100, or we have to create a lineup of 6 golfers. So basically what you do to figure this out is you go from here. Oh my goodness, what did I just do? So it'd be 101 times 100 times 99 times 98 times 97. See, 1, 2, 3, 4 times 96. This is how many different permutations I'm removing from starting at 85 and above. And really, that number gets even larger of how many different combinations of golf. Now, let's put it this way. We aren't coming down here and grabbing these 6 golfers and putting them in our lineups. We're not doing this. If I post that transpose, we're not leaving $14,000 on the table. So, that combination gets removed, but we're also not doing that with anything 7K and below. We're probably not even doing that with 8K and below. But for those that want to get a little cute with their optimal lineups, like if we were to take a look at, let's see here, I'm trying to find one. So $47,000 is what the optimal lineup was in 2019. Let's see, how do we get 47,000? I think we did this one for the PGA Championship, and I think we start at 7,900. So let me go 7,900, grab 6 golfers, put that over here, and see if we leave 3,000 on the table. 3,200, perfect. You want to know the difference between 8,400. So let's say we start at 84 and we go down to, what did we go to right here? So there are only 5 golfers that separate Brandt Snedeker and Kevin Na. In those 5 lineups, that difference of 5, basically what you end up doing is, I guess it wouldn't really make sense, but you would do something like this to find the different amount of lineups you can create just with those 5 golfers right here and there. But that doesn't account for everything below it and all the different permutations you can build below it. So actually, you know what it is? I do remember how to do this. It would be how many golfers from here down. You basically find the permutations, and then you would divide that by the permutations, how many you can do from here down. I know it's complicating, but you saw the huge number. 912 billion lineups I remove just by starting at 8,500 or 8,400 and above. That's kind of an exaggeration. It's not that big now that I think of it, because the difference between starting at 84 and 83 wouldn't be the same. But it would be if we didn't start with Kevin Na and we started with Kevin Streelman or anyone below, that's how many lineups. Okay, I'm sorry. We went on that way too long. Let's take a look at the other optimal lineups. Jeez. I'm sure I just lost a bunch of viewers just because of that. I won't describe that ever again. At least not in any of my preview videos. I might do it just for a overall video, and I should have just kept it there. But anyways, let's move on. Our optimal lineup in 2018 was very similar to our optimal lineup in 2017 for how much salary was used, 49,700. We have 10,000, 9,008, so 10,980, perfect. 7,769. Worked perfectly in that one. Yeah, couldn't do it any other way. I mean, no, I'm not even going to try. So yeah, that worked out perfectly for that optimal lineup in 2019. We kind of went through, it was 47,000 and it used these 6 golfers. It was 9, 8, 8, 7, 6, 6. But the realistic lineup would have been 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. So again, it would work that way. We would have used $50,000 of salary. So again, that 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 works out well there. And then in 2020, we had 49,400 was the optimal lineup. That was a 7K, 9K, 9K, 7, 9, 7. Wow, 3 9s and 3 7s. That's the first I've ever seen that when looking at optimal lineups. Could we have created it a different way? Let's see. 10, 9, 7, 7, 7, 8. So that's 49,300. Yeah, I mean, that's your 10, 9, 8, and then 3 7s. So, I mean, it works that way. There was not a 6K golfer inside the top 10. So that year it didn't work out. To me, what this is kind of saying is maybe 50% of your lineup should be that 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. And then from there, just go with whatever your gut tells you. I would say, the 9K range obviously was the number 2 bucket. Obviously, a pretty high success rate. We're projecting 2, finishing inside the top 10 this week. So, yeah, maybe you start at the 9K range. Or maybe you go 10, a low 10, go into the 9K range a couple times. Maybe skip the 8K range. I don't know. Up to you guys. And then load up in your 7s and your 6s. But it does seem like these are your salaries you want to choose from, 10, 9, 8, 7, because the 6K range, our projections aren't even that high. I mean, it's not really showing that much success whatsoever. And we have even less in that higher 6K range than we've seen on average. Last year, I do have to admit, if we were looking at the results here, and we scroll down, you can see this was last year's tournament. There were 148 golfers in the field, as opposed to your typical 123 golfers, I believe. Or 121. I think 121 is your normal number of golfers for this tournament. So last week, or last year, I should say, had way more golfers in the field than we've ever seen. That's probably what helps boost these numbers up, but it's not going to boost them up that much. Actually, no, that's a lie. Salary only goes back to 2017, so that would boost this number up quite a bit. Anyways, usually your 10K, 9K, that doesn't really get boosted that much. You usually see the same amount every single year for every tournament, I should say. There's usually 5 10K golfers. There's usually 9 9K golfers, and there's usually 10 8K golfers, believe it or not. You rarely ever get more than 25 golfers 8K and above. So anyways, that is salary. We did go over optimal lineup and kind of give you a very long-winded explanation as to how many different combinations of lineups we can remove if we just start at a higher salary. I don't think any of you guys really are going below 84. I think the best route to go from here. So usually I'd go from salaries and optimals to last year, then to last week. So we'll go to last week. Obviously, the PGA Championship was played last week. Have we ever had a Charles Schwab Challenge that had a PGA Championship played the week before? Obviously, in 2020, we didn't because this was the beginning of the restart. In 2019, we did. And that, again, that's when the PGA changed the time it's played, the PGA Championship, that is, to May. 2018, we had the Byron Nelson. So obviously the Byron Nelson was played right before the PGA Championship. Not the same tournament, obviously, played right before the Charles Schwab. But, we kind of have the same type of tournaments that were just prior. Obviously, it's not the PGA Championship. So we can look at 2019 and see we do have, a top 20 finish from that tournament in here. How many did we have exactly? Let's go ahead and just sort this so we can kind of see. We did have 5 golfers that did have a top 20 finish at the PGA Championship the week before the Charles Schwab. We had, let's see, let me get to the count. 11 golfers in that 20 to 40 range. We had 12 golfers in that 40 to 60 range. 60 to 80 were 8. Missed cut and withdraws, that was 25. And then we had 61 golfers who did not play in the PGA Championship. So how does that look compared to this year? We have 58, so that's very similar for the golfers who did not play than that year. But on average, it's pretty close to what we technically had. So again, 61 in 2019 when the PGA Championship was played the week before. The only time the PGA Championship was played the week before Charles Schwab. And then we have, 6 golfers in that field that were top 20 the week before. We have 13 this week, so a little bit more. We had 11, I believe, in that 20 to 40 range. We have 9, so very similar. We had 12 in that 40 to 60 range. We do see 10 this year, so again, very similar. So all around, pretty similar numbers this year than we did in 2019, again, when the PGA Championship was played before the Charles Schwab Challenge. So with that being said, we obviously only saw 1 inside the top 20 from the week before, but we kind of double that number for how many are in the field. I'm cool with this number. The projected amount is 2. So finding 2 golfers who top 20'd the week before, I think is going to be pretty important. And then all the buckets below it, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, our projections are pretty low. We don't even see 1. So to me, I don't lock in any of these buckets. They're too, I put them in that volatile, category. Like, yeah, I'll play some golfers from these buckets, no problem, but it's not going to be a lock. Like, I'm not locking in any of these golfers with those finishes last week. Missing the cut, it is our 3rd bucket, so it's a pretty decent bucket. On average, we usually see 31 golfers who missed the cut at the PGA Championship. In 2019, what did we have again? We had 25. So this year we have 24. Okay. So let's see how many did finish inside the top 20. Brian Gay did. He missed the cut, but he does fall in that bucket. Or he didn't miss the cut. He withdrew the week before. And as we see, wow, we actually have 5 golfers who finished top 13. 4 of them finished top 10. These are good signs for someone like a Justin Thomas, but I guess when it comes to the price tags, do we see anything that if we went this way? Okay, so John Rahm would be, Justin Thomas this year would be John Rahm of last year. Obviously, John Rahm missed the cut at the PGA Championship. Not last year, 2019, sorry. And he ended up missing the cut at the Charles Schwab. Bryson DeChambeau was right underneath him, missing the cut, as was Kevin Kisner. This is sorted by salary. In fact, nobody 9K and above who missed the cut at the PGA ended up making the cut at the Charles Schwab. So that's something to think about. It's not a for certain thing. Obviously, that's a trend, and it's a 1-year trend, so it's not even a trend. but it's something to consider. You know, if we take a look at golfers who, let's go by salary once again, and then go by this, and we go on to missed cuts. JT is obviously our top guy. Then it's right into the 8K range. And Ryan Palmer, just like last year, or in 2019, sorry. 2019, he finished top 10 at $8,400. This year, $8,600. Pretty darn close. Does he finish top 10? Kevin Na? Is he also there? Oh my God. What in the hell? So Kevin Na is 8,000. He won this tournament and he missed the cut at the PGA. This year he's $8,400 and he missed the cut at the PGA Championship. That's weird. If we see either of those guys inside the top 10, oh man, what's the word I'm looking for? Would we say the universe is balanced then? You know, if the same things were to happen every single year? I don't know. So that's crazy. That's super interesting. If you are one of those that kind of believes in that kind of thing, you can also think of it a different way. You know, Ryan Palmer and Kevin Na in 2019 were the price tags that I just mentioned. Obviously, Kevin Na is that 8,400, but obviously Ryan Palmer was 8,400. Kevin Na was 8,000. This year, your 8,000 guys, Brian Harman, 8,400 is Kevin Na. So it looks like Kevin Na, no matter what, should be a play, right? That's for you superstitious folk out there. I think it's kind of interesting. So it's worth mentioning. That's why we go through these buckets. It doesn't look like there's really the favorite bucket for top 5 would be the did not play, but again, that is a volume driven bucket. If we want to look at made cut percentages, you have a higher made cut percentage, grabbing golfers who top 20 the week before, and it just goes down the list, just in order as basically you see it here. So anyways, there's that. Next thing I'm going to get into is course history buckets. Now, this is going back to 2015. You need at least 2 years for me in order to have course history. I don't really like looking at 1 year of data for course history. 2 years is pretty low anyways. Like, I'm kind of iffy on that. So again, this goes back to 2015. That's where all the numbers that you see here fall under. Number 1 bucket's that 20 to 40 range. And I think that has a lot to do with the more times that you play a tournament. You know, let's say you top 20 the first time you play. You're going to have a course history of, you know, inside top 20. And maybe even if you were to finish 20 to 30th your next try, you're still going to be inside the top 20. Perhaps that's why that 1 to 20 range isn't that high, just because we don't see, you know, like, if you remember, golfers who did not play the year before is your highest bucket for last year buckets. Our number 1 bucket here is 20 to 40 for course history, but the second bucket are golfers who did not play. So they're completely brand new to this tournament. And in fact, I mean, it's not really a volume driven bucket. They're almost very similar, very close to each other with average per year. But yeah, you know, did not plays. That's our second most frequent bucket that finishes inside the top 20 or top 10. So obviously not playing this tournament ever kind of gives you a leg up. So Will Zalatoris just shows up that much more for golfers we might want to play. And with that, if they do finish top 20, maybe the next year they don't do that well. And that's why this number isn't that high for this bucket. So golfers who have that 1 to 20 range, not the greatest. 12.5%. Average per year is 10. So that means we see at least 1 every single year. And that's what we can obviously see here. If we were to look and just look at all the guys that have under 20 for course history, here are your guys. You know, Jordan Spieth, 9.5 is his course history. He finished 10th here last year. Has really good recent form. I don't know how many tournaments has Jordan Spieth played. Like, how many of this event has he played? A lot. Wow, that course history is really good for playing that much. So to me, I don't mind playing Jordan Spieth based off of that bucket, because he obviously has played that many more times. He's not one of those newbies that has played this only once. Now, Justin Thomas, on the other hand, I get that 10 is probably just a one-time deal, right? Yeah, he only played, his first time playing this was last year, and he finished 10th. Obviously, he's a world-class golfer, very elite. So, him finishing inside the top 10 can obviously happen. But again, he's only played this once. Colin Morikawa's only played this once. Corey Connors must have played this 3 times to have that .33. 19.33 is pretty darn good. So if we're looking at just, course history and golfers that have good course history here, Spieth and Connors are your guys that probably play this more than once, like several times. So they're probably a little bit more trustworthy than the other guys. Plus, the bucket doesn't even project to 1. So although the minimum is 1, we might actually see this bucket lose for the first time. Not produce 1 top 10. We shall see, but it looks like, we still want to choose golfers with that 20 to 40 average finishing position at this tournament, course history. And then go from there. We would want basically everything else underneath. So I don't know. We'll see. It's pretty wide open for course history, meaning any type of golfer is going to do well here, not just the best course history. Although that 20 to 40 is very close to being, your elite course history guys. Let's move on to recent form. The number 1 bucket's that 40 to 60. This is almost universal. Every single week, it's this bucket, 40 to 60. That's your in-between range. Now, I don't have more analysis to go with that. Like, I can't tell you how many top 10s that these golfers had prior to. And actually, let me step back a moment here. Recent form goes back the last 8 weeks for me. Because I'm a competitive golfer, I don't believe in anything prior to 8 weeks. Anything that happened 8 weeks ago isn't going to help me. And even 8 weeks, 2 months worth of time, it's maybe too long. I'm probably only thinking 2 weeks at a time whenever I'm golfing. Like, oh man, I was just hitting the ball, I was hitting the ball really well 2 weeks ago. What the heck's happening now? Or, I'm struggling. But I'm going to leave it at 2 months, because to me, it's just long enough to get enough events under a golfer's belt. Usually I can at least get 1 or 2 events in that 8 weeks time frame. And that's really all I want. I want to make sure there's 1 or 2 events. And if you haven't, then I feel like you're kind of ice cold. And I don't want to play you because you just haven't had that many events under your belt. Anyways, 40 to 60. So right in that middle mark. And then the range right before it, 20 to 40. So recent form of 20 to 40. 60 to 80 comes next, and then 1 to 20. But look at that success rate. This is the highest success rate I've ever seen for any bucket, ever. 39.13. That means this bucket's finishing inside the top 10 quite a bit. But we have a minimum of 0. Like, I've validated this number, and it is 39%. And that's primarily because I think we've had 25 total golfers in this bucket throughout the couple, since 2014, because that's how far my recent form goes back to. And of those 25 golfers, 9 of them finished inside the top 10. So that's where you get that 39%, which is a very high number. On average, we see 4 golfers from this bucket. We have 6 this year. So like 6, nearly 40%. We're gonna project 2. And I actually like that. If we were to take a look at those golfers, I usually don't do this until strategy video. But now we want to look at our best recent form guys, and we kind of already saw some of them, right? Jordan Spieth and Colin Morikawa. So here are your 6 golfers that fit in that. A lot of people talking about Spieth, Answer, Connors, Hoffman, Snedeker, and Villegas. Remember, it's 2. That's what we're projecting, is 2 guys from this bucket. So it's very easy to start your anchor spots from this bucket, in my opinion. And I probably will end up doing that. Now, I know it's, the recent form bucket 4, but that's just to do with frequency. This number isn't going to be that high because we don't see that many per year. And again, I'm okay with that. 39%, hey, just says play recent form bucket 4s. We're going to probably see more recent form bucket 1s inside the top 10 than we will 4s. And again, that's primarily because of volume, which is fine. That's exactly how I want this to be ranked. Anyways, your top 4 buckets for recent form end up just being everything basically average finishing position of 80 and below. Starting with the 40 to 60, going to 20 to 40, and then actually jumping to 60 to 80, then 1 to 20. But I do believe we're going to see, what are we actually projecting with all these numbers? We're going to see 12 golfers inside the top 10. It'd be cool. If not, I think the bucket that's probably going to hurt the most is going to be this one. I don't really anticipate. To me, I don't, well, I guess both of these buckets to me are going to hurt just a little bit because their numbers for this year are smaller than average per year. So that's how I feel about that. Now, when it comes to strokes gain stats, I always rank it how I have it on the screen. When all the stats are positive, all your main 4 categories, off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, when they're all 4 positive, that's your number 1 bucket. Number 2 is positive off the tee, positive putting. And one of those buckets in between, approach or around the green, are negative. I know I've thought about actually changing these buckets up a little bit, where it would be positive putting for strokes gained bucket 1, positive off the tee, and positive approach. And then this would be positive off the tee, positive putting, but negative approach. Thought about doing that. It didn't work out during the PGA Championship. We saw the same amount of golfers who were strokes gained bucket 1s. Didn't matter with positive approach or not. I shouldn't say it was the same number, but it just didn't work out the way I thought it might. So anyways, we'll see. I'm going to start thinking about doing it that way because I think it might be a little simpler. But strokes gained bucket 3, positive off the tee, negative putting. Strokes gained bucket 4, negative off the tee, positive putting. 5, negative off the tee, negative putting. And 6, no strokes gained. I'll say this, I'll say it again. I've said it a lot of tournaments. This really nets 0 top 10s. I think we're going on 12 weeks in a row where there have been 0 top 10s from this bucket. We see 10 on average, 8 this year, and one of those guys is Sahi Thigala, or Thigala, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who is a budding star, or could be, but I'm going to stay away from him. He's really the only guy in that bucket that's really worth a damn to talk about, but good reason not to play him. Like, don't get sucked into that trap, even if it's for a GPP. No point. We can see, though, minimum 1 for every other bucket. So strokes gained bucket 5, finding a negative off the tee and a negative putter guy. Like I said in the beginning of this video, we go over strokes gained buckets this way, or we go over strokes gained this way because you can't just pinpoint, off the tee, all positive off the tee or all positive approach. You're never going to get the optimal lineup that way. And I mean, I can validate this. So if we were to look, at 2019, let me hide some of this stuff, and look at the strokes gained stats, we have negative off the tee. Your winner was negative off the tee. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 golfers negative off the tee. Now negative approach, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could make the argument, well, what's their rolling stats? Are they playing better recently than they were in the past? I don't have those rolling stats for you, so I can't do it, but I guarantee you some of these guys are just god awful, and you would have to pinpoint, like you would have to basically load it the way you want it in order to see what you want to see. To me, you stick to one time frame and you look at every golfer's rolling report from that time frame going forward to try to figure it out. I don't think Andrew Putnam was playing better, to have this negative off the tee stat. And even if he was, he still has that negative off the tee stat. And these are your season-long stats, so obviously if you did a closer time frame, maybe it does change. But what I'm showing you is you can't just target one type of golfer over another, because there's way too much difference inside the top 10. And if you want to win a GPP, you can't stick to just one way of thinking. You can't just stick to, I want positive ball strikers no matter what. This guy right here, not positive with ball striking. This guy's not positive with ball. Jordan Spieth in 2019 was not positive with ball striking. Neither was Nick Watney. I don't really have to go through all of these guys, but you can obviously see, I mean, we have 4 guys right here, not positive ball striking. I don't even know if they were in the optimal lineup. Putnam, Spieth, Watney, Hughes? Probably not. Nope, Putnam was. Spieth was not. Neither was Watney, neither was Hughes. But Putnam was. You needed Putnam. I don't think you'd get there without putting in a negative golfer, just because, hey, it shows up inside the top 10. And I mean, I have proof. That's what my analysis uncovered. Okay, we're already past an hour. I kind of went on a couple tangents that probably went a little longer than they needed to, but hey, I had fun doing it, so I have no regrets whatsoever. I will save this, obviously, everything that I usually talk about strategy. We'll look at anchor buckets tomorrow. I'll look at my anchor plays. You kind of already saw one with that recent form bucket 4. I think choosing from that group is going to be a good starting place. They're all, they were very good golfers to look at. So obviously, we have some fun decisions to make tomorrow. So I'll keep all that with the strategy video. We'll look at tee time pairings tomorrow. Hopefully Statement Games will have their picks up. They've been late, and I know that the owner has had issues with the writer trying to get, something written in time. So that's kind of why it's been a little bit late. But we'll go over that, and then obviously use the optimizer to try to figure out some decent lineups. So thank you guys for staying all the way to this time. If you did, I greatly appreciate it. Hour and 12 minutes. It's pretty long. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you in that strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye.